Making headlines this hour, the World Bank's latest Maldives Development Update 2026 highlighted a marked improvement in the country's foreign exchange position. The Maldives calls for increased international financial assistance to help vulnerable countries address and recover from the impacts of climate change. The Ministry of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development announces that preparations are underway to launch additional housing schemes across islands outside the Greater Malé area.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to PSM News in English. With me, Fatma Zaina Rifat. And now let's look at the news in detail. The World Bank's latest Maldives Development Update 2026 highlights a marked improvement in the country's foreign exchange FX position, attributing the gains to the government's tightened FX regulations and a series of fiscal tightening measures.
Under the amended Foreign Exchange Act, banks are now required to market tourism-generated foreign currency at a fixed per-tourist rate, a move designed to funnel more hard currency earnings directly into the national pool. A reciprocal currency swap arrangement with the Reserve Bank of India, concluded by the end of 2024, was also singled out as a supportive step. Official FX reserves stood at $1.3 billion in March 2026, but after a debt repayment operation in April, the reserve slipped to $717.9 million by May. The government's fiscal reforms have already narrowed the revenue expenditure gap to $330.6 million, roughly 4.3% of GDP. The budget deficit for 2024, which was at $700.4 million, has reined in as government spending has been curtailed to 37.1% of GDP, an 8.3 percentage point reduction from the previous year, while revenue rose to 33% of GDP, a 12% year-on-year increase. In addition, the World Bank added the Maldives has met its obligations on sovereign sukuk issuances, State Bank of India loans, and currency swap repayments, further bolstering its debt profile. The World Bank described the reforms as a positive step towards macroeconomic stability, while cautioning that sustained vigilance will be needed to keep the fiscal gap from widening again.
President Dr. Mohamed Muizzu states that no party stands to benefit from obstructing the fulfillment of pledges made to the public.
The president made these remarks during the second episode of the Pulse podcast program released on Friday. In this episode, which focused specifically on the fisheries industry, the president responded to questions posed by Miharu, detailing the ongoing initiatives to strengthen the sector and highlighting key milestones achieved so far. Emphasizing his commitment to strengthening the entire industry, the president noted that positive outcomes have already been realized through efforts to streamline operations and improve efficiency at the Maldives Industrial Fisheries Company, or MIFCO. He noted that the aim is to maintain the fish purchasing price at $1.30 per kilogram, expressing confidence that it could be raised further as conditions allow. Similarly, the president expressed hope that the existing tariff exemption granted by the United Kingdom would continue and become permanent, affirming that efforts would continue on this front as well. President Muizzu also noted that measures are currently being undertaken to address the grievances of yellowfin tuna fishermen. He pointed out that the most sustainable competitive prices could be secured through MIFCO's re-entry into the yellowfin tuna market and assured that the process would be carried out in consultation with the fishing community. In addition, the president addressed the decline in the number of people actively engaged in the fisheries sector across the country. The president also observed that the industry has suffered due to excessive recruitment into state-owned enterprises or SOEs, which had diverted a significant portion of the workforce. However, he explained that ongoing SOE reforms would yield positive structural outcomes for the wider economy, including the fisheries sector, and reaffirmed the government's commitment to addressing these challenges through a holistic and comprehensive economic policy framework. Expressing overall satisfaction with the progress of ongoing efforts to advance the fisheries industry, the President concluded by assuring that existing challenges to developing a modern, state-of-the-art fish market in Male City, the hub with the highest concentration of stakeholders in the industry, would be resolved.
The initial training for the third batch of the National Service officially launches. The program was inaugurated by Chief of Defence Force Major General Ibrahim Hilmi at the Mahfila Fushi Composite Training Centre. A total of 352 cadets are participating from 112 islands, including 228 males and 64 females. The program runs for 15 weeks. The oath for instructors was administered by the National Service Initial Training Centre's Chief Instructor, Captain Muhammad Husham Musa, while the cadets' oath was taken by Commanding Officer Lieutenant Colonel Ibrahim Shahid. The program is part of a national initiative led by President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu to build a disciplined and responsible youth population with values, including Islamic principles. Training components include character development and behavioral activities, first aid, firefighting, self-defense, camp activities, and basic military orientation. Graduates will receive multiple certificates, including a National Service Initial Training Completion Certificate, Civil Education and Leadership Certificate, Community Volunteer Firefighter Certificate, Basic First Aid Certificate, and Peer Education Training Certificate. The Maldives calls for increased international financial assistance to help vulnerable countries address and recover from the impacts of climate change.
The appeal was made by the permanent representative of the Maldives to the United Nations office in Geneva, Dr. Salma Rashid, during the 62nd session of the United Nations Human Rights Council. She delivered the statement at the annual panel discussion on the adverse impacts of climate change on human rights. In her remarks, Dr. Salma highlighted the disproportionate challenges faced by climate-vulnerable countries, including the Maldives, and stressed the need for stronger international support. She called on all states to adopt the Multidimensional Vulnerability Index, or MVI, an international framework developed by the United Nations to assess a country's vulnerability to economic, environmental, and social shocks. The index is designed to provide a more comprehensive measure of vulnerability than traditional indicators such as GDP or per capita income, enabling countries to access assistance based on actual needs. Dr. Salma also urged the international community to increase grant-based adaptation finance and ensure the full capitalization and replenishment of multilateral climate funds, including the Fund for Responding to Loss and Damage. She emphasized that climate-vulnerable nations often bear the greatest burden with the effects of climate change, undermining fundamental human rights. During an interactive dialogue with the UN Special Rapporteur on Climate Change and Human Rights, the Maldives highlighted the close link between climate resilience and food security. In its statement, the Maldives presented its traditional pole and line fishing method as a global example of sustainable fisheries management. The delegation noted that community-driven initiatives help create sustainable livelihoods while strengthening resilience to climate-related challenges. The Maldives also stressed the importance of building robust food security systems and called for enhanced international cooperation, stronger grant-based climate financing mechanisms, and greater support for locally led solutions. On the sidelines of the Human Rights Council session, the permanent mission of the Maldives in Geneva participated in a cultural exhibition. The Maldivian exhibition showcased the country's cultural heritage, traditional handicrafts, local cuisine, and literature. Visitors were provided with an opportunity to learn the Maldives' unique customs, traditions, and national identity.
The Ministry of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development announces that preparations are underway to launch additional housing schemes across islands outside the Greater Malé area, with the projects expected to be officially introduced within the next month.
The ministry stated that one of the main factors driving migration to the Greater Malé region is the lack of adequate housing and living conditions on many islands and within atolls. To address this issue, the government is prioritizing the implementation of housing schemes in the islands to support those who wish to remain in their home communities. Speaking on PSM News' program, State Minister for Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development Ahmad Nazim Mohammed said the new housing projects designed for islands outside the capital region are expected to be launched within approximately 1 month. Nazim said the projects are being developed under 2 separate models. The first involves the construction of affordable housing units that citizens will be able to apply for at an affordable rate. The second focuses on home construction schemes, which will be linked with financial institutions to provide financing opportunities for individuals wishing to build homes on their own land plots. He said the 2 models would ensure that citizens have the opportunity to apply for a housing option that best suits their need and preferences. The state minister also noted that the initiative is part of President Dr. Mohamed Muizzu's pledge to expand access to housing and will enable a large number of citizens to secure housing during the current presidential term. According to the government, one of the key objectives of developing affordable housing in the islands is to ensure that people employed in the tourism sector can more easily secure housing and establish families within the regions where they work. The government further stated that the initiative is intended to create greater opportunities for people who wish to live in the islands, reducing reliance on the Greater Malé area. It is also expected to support citizens relocating to locations identified by the government for development as urban centers. Meanwhile, work is already underway to address previously stalled housing projects in the islands and to assist individuals facing financial difficulties in constructing homes on their own land under the government's Housing for All policy. The government said applications for the ongoing program have already been received from 43 islands across the country.
The Ministry of Health, Family and Welfare launches the National Family Mediation Training Program, alongside the release of a groundbreaking research report on the vulnerabilities of children and women at various stages of family life, highlighting that divorce affects children more significantly than spouses.
Speaking at the launch ceremony, Minister Gila Ali emphasized that couples will continue to fulfill their responsibilities as parents even after separation and underscored the importance of protecting children from the harmful effects of family and marital disputes. The study report revealed that the impacts of various family problems on children is far greater than on adults, with children being identified as the most vulnerable to divorce-related stress. Minister Gila stressed that the cornerstone of a strong society is a strong family, noting that trained mediators are essential to help families resolve issues before they escalate. The government has now started work to ensure that this service is available to every magistrate court across the Maldives and not just confined to the capital Malé. Training for mediators and trainers is scheduled to begin in July, with subsequent rollout to magistrate courts across the country. This initiative aims to help families address issues, particularly those related to divorce, before reaching the point of separation, thereby strengthening family relationships as part of President Dr. Mohamed Muizzu's policy to build a healthy society.
The Ministry of Fisheries, Agriculture and Ocean Resources, in collaboration with Housing Development Corporation, HDC, launches Mudufest 2026 to mark World Oceans Day.
The event was officially inaugurated by the Minister of Fisheries, Agriculture and Ocean Resources Ahmad Shiam during a special ceremony. Speaking at the opening of the festival, Minister Shiam said the ocean is deeply connected to Maldivian culture, traditions and livelihoods. He stressed that protecting and preserving marine resources is a shared responsibility. Speaking to PSM News, State Minister at the Fisheries Ministry, Aminat Hussain Sharif, said the event is being held in 2 sessions. She explained that the first session is focused on providing children with an opportunity to experience and appreciate the beauty of the ocean through a Discover Dive program. A coral planting activity has also been included as part of the program, according to the State Minister. The second session, scheduled from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., features water sport activities and a variety of stalls. The Fisheries Ministry has organized a series of activities to commemorate World Ocean Day, As part of these celebrations, a nationwide reef fishing competition was also held on the 19th of June.
A futsal pitch officially opens in Ma Kuratu Ra Atoll. In January last year, President Dr. Mohamed Muizzu traveled to inhabited islands across the Maldives to hear directly from residents about their concerns, aspirations, and development needs. During his visit to Ma Kuratu, a group of local children met the president privately and shared a simple request. They wanted a futsal pitch built on their island. Accompanying the president on the visit was the Minister of Youth Empowerment, Sports and Fitness, Abdullah Rafiu. Upon hearing the children's request, President Muizzu immediately instructed the minister to begin arrangements to develop the facility as requested. The government stated that the president responded to the request without regard to the children's age, reflecting the administration's commitment to listening to citizens and acting on their concerns. Following the president's directive and under the close supervision of Minister Rafiu, work on the project commenced within the year. The project was awarded to the Maldives Transport and Contracting Company (MTCC) and was completed in early May this year. The futsal pitch, developed in fulfillment of the president's pledge to the children of Ma Kuratu, has now been officially inaugurated. Minister Abdullah Rafiu traveled to Ma Kuratu as the president's special envoy and formally opened the facility. The opening of the futsal pitch marks the completion of a project initiated following a direct request from the island's children during the president's nationwide visits. The Maldives Bureau of Statistics is set to expand the nationwide household income and expenditure survey eyes to 3 additional atolls this week, including Addu City.
The survey, which is conducted every 5 to 6 years, began in February and has already completed 2 rounds of data collection in Kafu and Mimu Atoll. After launching in the islands last month, the agency is now preparing to commence field work in Addu City, Lamu and Nunu atolls, with data collection activities slated to continue through 28 June in the selected islands. The HIES aims to generate a comprehensive picture of household economic conditions in the Maldives. Its primary objective includes identifying average household expenditure and spending patterns across various categories, formulating the country's official poverty standard, revising the weightings of the market price index or CPI, and developing metrics that reveal the gap between average household income and expenditure distribution. To achieve this, enumerators will record weekly expenditure as well as broader expenses covering 3, 6, and 12-month periods, gathering data on general household characteristics, living standards, property ownership, employment, income, medical cost, transportation, and other living-related expenses. A total of 4,095 households will be surveyed, 2,085 in the capital Male, and 2,010 across the atolls. The Bureau has urged local officials to provide easy access to households to ensure a smooth data gathering process. All information collected will be treated as strictly confidential. Only trained and authorized officers will handle the data in line with the Maldives' statistical privacy standards. The findings from the survey will be reviewed and published by the Maldives Bureau of Statistics, providing policymakers with up-to-date insights to guide poverty reduction strategies, inflation monitoring, and social support programs.
As World Cup fever grips Vancouver, the tournament proves a tale of 2 cities for local businesses, with some riding a wave of international customers while others find themselves locked out of the action. Near BC Place Stadium, Coast Crafts is experiencing what owner Kingsley Bailey calls pandemonium, as football fans from around the globe snap up souvenirs.
They're from everywhere. They're from around the world. And I really don't think the Canadians really knew how big soccer was until they saw Australia and Turkey with no skin in the game, not from this country, how crazy they went. The fans, it was just pandemonium.
The souvenir shop has become a magnet for visitors eager for affordable World Cup memorabilia, with Bailey's homemade Vancouver, BC 2026 fridge magnets proving an unexpected hit. But FIFA's strict licensing rules have created headaches for some other entrepreneurs. Dawn Moulton, who runs Cascadia Natural Pet Supply on Main Street, said she was asked by a distributor to remove references to FIFA from football-themed bears she had advertised online. Asked whether it impacted her business, she replied, "Not really. I didn't buy many of these bears. I bought 30, so my profit would be like $100. I didn't really care about these bears. That's why I was surprised that anybody else really cared about these bears." She later gave away the remaining bears to a dog rescue. For some businesses, the World Cup has meant shutting up shop entirely. Aquariums West, a tropical fish store near the stadium, is closing for all 7 games due to access problems and plummeting foot traffic. Iran's Strait of Hormuz body says it would waive planned fees to use the strait during a 60-day negotiation period under the Memorandum of Understanding signed with the United States this week. Iran's Persian Gulf Strait Authority (PGSA) said in a notice that ships seeking passage through the strait while the interim agreement is in force must submit transit requests at least 48 hours before arrival. Iran would waive fees for security, safety, environmental services, and related insurance during the period, while requiring vessels to coordinate routes and transit times in advance due to areas affected by mines and to ensure safe navigation. U.S. President Donald Trump earlier said the signed agreement gives Iran 60 days to reach a deal with the United States, warning that Washington will otherwise do things that won't make them happy. Oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz picked up on Friday after the United States and Iran signed a ceasefire deal, with Gulf producers preparing to raise exports despite concerns over conditions set by Tehran for using the vital waterway. According to marine traffic data, at least 4 tankers carrying crude, oil products, and liquefied petroleum gas entered the strait on Friday, heading for Iraqi Gulf ports. Taylor Fritz finally gets his revenge on Ben Shelton, saving a match point to complete a thrilling comeback victory at the Hale Open. The world number 9 has endured a painful 2026 against his American compatriot, losing to Shelton in the ATP final in Dallas in February, and then again on grass in Stuttgart just 6 days ago. But Fritz ensured that there would be no hat-trick of heartbreak, striking 24 aces and saving all 4 breakpoints he faced during the 2-hour, 49-minute encounter. The dramatic turning point came when Fritz faced match point on his serve in the second set tiebreak, only to fight back and eventually claim the victory. Fritz will next face top seed Alexander Zverev, who defeated Rafael Collignon 7-6, 7-6 for a place in Sunday's final. Elsewhere, Daniel Altmaier secured his second biggest win of the year, overcoming tournament 4th seed Daniil Medvedev 6-4, 6-7. American France's Tiafoe also pulled off an upset, beating Canadian Felix Auger-Aliassime 3-6, 6-3, 7-6. A tiny oranda goldfish named Swimbappe makes a big splash in Toronto with daily World Cup match predictions, made from his own underwater pitch, capturing the curiosity and hearts of football fans in the city. Swimbappe, named after the France skipper Kylian Mbappe, lives in a tank designed like a football field that is displayed outside of an office building in downtown Toronto. Every day, the orange creature lines up in the center circle to predict the day's match winners. With teams' flags displayed above the tank, a small crowd usually counts down before the fish swims left or right to deliver his verdict. And those picks are rarely wrong, his owners say. Of the 28 match match predictions Mbappe has made, 14 were correct, while 4 were wrong. As for the 10 draws, those were out of his fins.
Yeah, we installed this tank here, and it's decked out to look like a soccer pitch. And then every day we have these cards that go on either side of the tank. We put the cards in, we start a timer, and give him a couple of seconds to contemplate who he thinks is going to win that match. And then the side of the tank that he swims to is his prediction.
Glen's studio has a history of installing sports-themed activations outside the office space. This summer, the football fan wanted to create something to engage the public during the World Cup, particularly an oracle fish that predicts all 104 tournament matches. The team sorted through nearly 100 potential names, including Finaldo, before landing on Mbappe. Animals have been sharing the spotlight with players lately. In Mexico City, Merlin the duck became an unexpected sensation after the white-feathered bird was spotted waddling around the street in a miniature Mexico jersey. A Scotland-supporting duck named Dawn led a pre-match Big Pipe March in Providence, Rhode Island. Mbappe has been reeling in a steady flow of passerby, whether they are enamored by the creature's cuteness or curious about the installation's large image of a goldfish in a jersey. And that's all the news we have today. Thank you for watching PSM News.